Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. We're just about a week and a half, a little bit less from the first regular season game of the year, my friends. I am so freaking excited. We got a lot of energy, a lot of passion, and a lot of desire to see this Giants team be good this year. And in fact, I saw a lot of experts, so-called experts in quotations, say that the Giants were going to lose this week one game against Denver. One guy, he must have fallen off the wagon or something, had them losing, giving up 33 points. And I'm like, sir, you must not know that the Giants defense allowed far less
To
than
who?
that last year against Teddy Bridgewater. I'm like, you
To
serious?
Teddy?
33 points to Teddy
To Teddy?
Bridgewater? I actually
My
felt like
dog's name is
personally
Teddy.
offended.
To Teddy?
I know. I felt personally offended by such just ridiculous predictions here. 33 points to James Bradbury, the blanket. Shout out to Mike, who came up with that name. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Big Blake Martinez. Absolute nonsense, my friends. Absolute nonsense. 33 points. Expert. BS.
Unbelievable.
But
Unbelievable.
and there's no way, right? There's no way that happens, or at least we can hope not. But we have a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about. We want to talk about some positive injury news that came across today regarding Kenny Golladay, Kyle Rudolph, Saquon Barkley, and even Evan Ingram suited up a little bit today. He was doing some work on the side with the full pads on, and of course Kadarius Toney. We're going to talk about those guys. We're going to talk about an interesting narrative on the offensive line regarding Nick Gates, and we're going to talk about a new signing, center Matt Skura, who was with the Baltimore Ravens. I do want to touch on Collin Johnson from Texas for a few minutes just to talk about what he brings to this team and how they might be looking to use him and why he made this roster without having gone through a preseason. They cut Dante Pettis, replaced him with Collin Johnson. So, we want to talk about all these things, Anthony. Before we do, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing real good. I'm very excited for the start of the regular season. It's 10 days away. I can't wait to see the Giants suit up against the Denver Broncos, 4:25 p.m., September 12th, Sunday afternoon. Can't wait. Really hoping that we don't end up on an episode of Freezing Cold Takes for our whole little spiel at the beginning there, making fun of Teddy Bridgewater. But honestly, man, if you watch the Giants defense last year, they're not going to give up 33 points to that team. Come on. I know they got some good playmakers, but still, it's week one as well. Usually week one is a little bit lower scoring generally. So, yeah, man, I'm really pumped, though, regardless. And I'm very intrigued by a few of these storylines today. I definitely do want to talk about Colin Johnson. He has looked very tall. He's looked very tall and very good. And all the film that I've seen from him has been pretty impressive. But most intriguing storyline for me today is the Nick Gates discussion that we're going to have between him at center or him at guard. Really excited to dive into all of it with you today, Alex.
Yeah, let's just talk about Collin Johnson for just a moment because I know we touched on him last episode and kind of what he brings to this offense, right? So he's coming from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wildly, I saw a couple Jaguars fans pop into my mentions about him, and they were like, "We don't know what Urban Meyer is doing. Like we don't get it. Like he was a good player for us. Like he looked good. Like good luck with him. Like enjoy his production and his quality. Like we don't know why they cut him. So clearly it wasn't like a scenario where we got Billy Price or we got another guy and all the fans of the opposite fan base were like, this guy sucks eggs. You know what I mean? Everyone was like, Collin Johnson's actually pretty good. We don't know why we got rid of him, and we don't have a deep wide receiver core whatsoever. Now they have like Marvin Jones, and they have DJ Shark and Levant. What is him? Chenault, Laviska Chenault. So they have a couple of good players there, but Collin Johnson's a good depth piece. And why do the Giants want him? Well, this is how I see it. You can let me know on YouTube in the comments whether you agree with me or not. The Giants have Kenny Golladay, right? Invested 40 years, $74 million into a big 6'4" red zone threat, but also a big 50-50 ball catcher. Now, what happens is when you have injuries, and Kenny Golladay historically has had some injuries. He's been dealing with a hamstring this entire offseason. The way I look at it is, if he does go down, if he does miss any time for whatever reason, knock on wood, they want to have a player who could supplement that loss and not have to disrupt the scheme too much. So I think Collins really represents that. He's a 6'6" guy. He's the tallest receiver in the NFL as of last year. He posted some good production last season with Jacksonville. He's really a specialist in coming down with 50-50 balls. He's also great in the red zone. He finds space really nicely. He has that ability to high point footballs, which is exactly what the Giants are looking for and adding more height to this roster. So I think by getting Collin Johnson, I think that they kind of want him to be a player they can inject if Kenny Golladay misses any time, that he can replicate at least those snaps, those design plays for him. or really at least not axe half the playbook because now your number one receiver is not on the field anymore. They want to have somebody that can at least supplement him in that way. David Sills just isn't that type of receiver, and I think that's kind of why they didn't want him in that role. He is 6'4", but he's not a possession receiver. He's not a high point the football type of receiver. He is a smoother route runner. He's pretty balanced with all of his attributes. But I think that, they really wanted a guy who can go up and make those big 50-50 catches. And there's a couple highlights from last year where Collin Johnson does just that. And he is a very untapped guy, right? He's a 5th round pick from last season. He only has 1 year of experience under his belt with Jacksonville. The Giants have a pretty good wide receiver coach, in Tyke Tolbert. And I think that for the most part, there's a lot of potential there that might be left to find and unravel. So give Colin Johnson an opportunity on this team. I'm not saying he's as good as Kenny Galladay. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a starter in this league. All I'm saying is that I think they wanted a player to come in and supplement the scheme if need be, if Kenny Galladay misses any time.
Yeah, the playing style between those two players is very similar, Kenny Galladay and Collin Johnson. I really like Collin Johnson. He is great at those 50-50 jump balls, but he also has a little bit of yak to him. If you go and you watch some of his highlights, he has some plays where he catches the ball and turns upfield and makes some nice yards after the catch. He's a pretty good, well-rounded player. Obviously, being 6'6", he's got a huge frame, which quarterbacks love to throw to. They love to throw to a guy that size, right? That's why Daniel Jones, we kept saying he needs a big body outside receiving threat. They went and got Kenny Galladay because that is important. And of course, Collin Johnson being the backup for Kenny Galladay, it's important that the playing style is similar, that their body types are similar, everything like that. And also with Collin Johnson, I don't know what Jacksonville was thinking. I don't know why on earth they actually went ahead and cut Collin Johnson, because this is a player who, if you continue to develop, could one day be a starter in this league. And that's really how I view him. He was really nice coming out of college last year. A lot of people really liked his tape, really liked him as a player, and saw a pretty translatable skill set to the NFL game. And I think that we saw that come to fruition last year. He looked like a good NFL player, but they cut him anyway, and he's super young, and I'm not really sure why on earth they did that, because that's a team that I think should be trying to harvest as much young talent around Trevor Lawrence as they can. This is a player that they should have kept to develop, but hey, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and I think that we might have just found the diamond in the rough right here with Collin Johnson. I think that he is a really good player. I want to see him develop with the Giants, and I think that he will be a good player for us long-term, whether as a backup or if he one day does take a starting role. But as a backup, I think we're going to be very pleased with Collin Johnson.
That's what we hope, at least, right? We are hoping that he can offer that kind of production, at least on the back end. But one interesting thing that did happen today, right? This is very, very interesting. The Giants are having Nick Gates take snaps at guard, right? So what does that mean for the offensive line? Well, essentially, that means that they might have a couple different combinations they want to test out during the regular season. This might not mean that the offensive line is established yet. They have a established starting five. Of course, Andrew Thomas will play left tackle. Aside from the New York Post article that suggests that he might actually be in limbo or something like that. Their headlines are absolute bogus these days anyway. But Andrew Thomas, pretty much your guaranteed left tackle. And by the way, really cool from the offensive line coach Rob Sale to come out and actually say that what was going wrong with Andrew Thomas and Matt Pert. He basically was saying they're not landing their jabs. Their feet are a little bit slow. He gave us some good insight into what actually is going wrong with them. But he said they have all the fundamentals, like they're really taking those steps forward.
I have a hot take on how to solve all of that. You switch their sides. You put one on the left side and the other one on the right side. I know I kind of hinted at this yesterday. The more I think about it, the more I watch this film, the more I look at it. I think Andrew Thomas might benefit from a switch to the other side, and maybe that's why they had the workload management for him today, and they had Nate Solder take snaps at left tackle today. Could that be something that they're thinking about? I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, but dude, his left hand is not landing on any of those jams that you're talking about, that Rob Sale is talking about. His left hand has been a real problem for him. His right hand seems to be doing just fine. Would he benefit from a switch to the other side of the line? And it seems like Matt Baird's having the same issue on the other side. So I don't know. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's also something that I've seen people in the comment section last year before the season started. They said he should be at left tackle and he should be at right tackle, talking about Andrew Thomas at right tackle. People thought that they had it backwards at the start. Now we feel confident with it because Andrew Thomas played a whole season at left tackle, but maybe we should revisit that conversation that we had at the beginning of last year. I'm pretty sure that Diggy, the other YouTuber who I'm sure many of you follow and enjoy his content as well, I'm pretty sure he was someone that mentioned Andrew Thomas should actually be a right tackle coming out last year. But I don't know, just something to keep in mind. It's a little interesting. I know it's kind of unorthodox, especially after a full year in the league playing one position. But I think it's something to keep an eye on as we go forward, as we see his workload management be reduced, stuff like that. And just kind of getting a little skeptical with Andrew Thomas. Want to see if there's any other optional solutions out there.
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting, narrative to bring up. Could they potentially move him to the right side? And that's part of like the narrative that I just mentioned, and the fact that the offensive line might not be settled just yet. There might not be a suggested starting five. They might want to just test different guys at different positions, which would indicate potentially taking Andrew Thomas, putting him at right tackle, which I don't think that they will do, but you really never know. When you're talking about Nick Gates specifically, he's a guy that could go in and play left guard immediately if you needed him to. He's played right guard, he's played right tackle, he's played center. He's played all over the offensive line. So if they wanted him to go maybe to right guard where he has experience, they can move Hernandez back to left guard and then put Billy Price or Skura at center. We'll talk about Skura in a minute. But Anthony, what is your opinion on moving Nick Gates around? Because he's one of those guys who can actually play multiple spots at an adequate level. They've been training him, or at least cross training him at the center and guard spots this offseason. And I think now that they're really giving him more reps at left guard, this could be a pretty indicating sign that they want to test different combinations during the regular season, which they might have to do because there is a lot of players there, new players in Ben Bredesen and Billy Price. They might want to be testing out to see if they can, at least provide some sort of talent, some sort of consistency in a unit that is full of holes.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Nick Gates fan. I love the way he plays and I love his versatility. But one thing that I'll say, it's kind of like a counterpoint. I don't think that I want to see him starting or playing much at left guard. Have him practice it in practice. Absolutely. Let's see him practice left guard. But starting there or playing there in the regular season, I would like to try and avoid that for the simple fact that he has never played on the left side of the line in his entire career. So, in case any of you aren't aware, coming out of college, Nick Gates was actually a right tackle. So that's why he is such an oversized center, oversized guard, because he was originally a tackle on the right side. Then they moved him into right guard and he played really well. And then they moved him all the way to center. So he's made it from tackle all the way to center, which is pretty far way to go. Absolutely. But I think when you're talking about switching him now to the left side, then we're talking about the same thing we were just talking about with Andrew Thomas, where you're saying, okay, maybe his fundamentals, his technique works better on the other side of the line. Talking about a guy in Nick Gates who's been in the league now for 3 years, played 4 years of college football. All of it came on the right side of the line. He's just now getting used to the middle of the line at center. So I don't know if he actually would translate over to left guard too well. I feel like that flip might be a whole lot for him considering where he started and where he's wound up. Because then one day we're going to be talking about him playing left tackle at this point, right? He's gone right tackle, right guard, center, left guard. What's next? Left tackle? I don't know. I think let's keep him on the right side or at center. I think if you're going to move him over to the left side, you're going to have to take a lot of time practicing that. And hopefully they are. It sounds like that's what they're doing. They're starting to get him warmed up to that just in case it needs to happen, in case one of those left guards is playing so poorly that they have to make that switch. But I don't think it's something that they want to do, and I don't think it's something that they should try to do unless they absolutely have to do it.
Right, and I think that I'm kind of in the same boat as that. I'd rather keep Nick Gates at center. I'd rather figure out the guard spots with the talent that we have. I think so. I suggested something today on Twitter to get some people's opinion, and essentially the idea is this: if the Giants feel confident with Shane Lemieux and his injury, he will start Week 1 against the Denver Broncos, and then following a short week, you on that Thursday night, you go out and you walk out Ben Bredesen as the starter for Week 2. That would mitigate, any significant fatigue for Lemieux, let him rest. But, that's an idea. The other idea is let the best man win. Let's see who practices the best this week. Apparently, Bredesen looks pretty good. He's trying to get his feet a little bit quicker, but he brings over that hog molly toughness from the Baltimore running game. The Baltimore Ravens love to run the football. That is their MO. The Giants want to follow that. They want Saquon Barkley to be their bell cow. They want to run the football very efficiently. Ben Bredesen and Andrew Thomas alongside, they should provide a good combination on the strong side of that offensive line to, at least if you're going outside zone, if you're doing draws, counters to that strong side, they should have some success there. And I think that really suggests that Saquon Barkley will be involved if they're going to be running the football more. And I hope that they give Saquon more time in the backfield, right? The plays I hate the most are when you're running inside zone with Saquon Barkley, not giving him enough time to pick the right holes. He's not the best at finding the right holes. You need to give him a little bit more time to shake and bake on those outside zone runs, on those halfback tosses, those sweeps, even counters. It gives him an extra millisecond, extra second to decide where he wants to hit the hole. And I think that the offensive line they have on the strong side with Bredesen and Andrew Thomas plus Nick Gates there too, strong run blockers. That's what we want. Now, The question is, can he hold up in pass protection? And that's going to be tough because, of course, you don't have that chemistry that, maybe Shane Lemieux and Will Hernandez have, or rather Shane Lemieux and Andrew Thomas. But at this point, do Andrew Thomas and Shane Lemieux even really have any chemistry right now? They just changed their entire technique, and Shane Lemieux's barely been practicing. I feel like Bredesen might be equivalent at this point. Maybe a week or two behind, which is where we are from week one. Unless if he can learn the playbook in that time period, if he can learn the playbook
Right.
in that 1 week, that week and a half, I think he's going to be starting because, like you said last episode, Anthony, like, yes, maybe Shane Lemieux will be starting, but the reality is he's not even that good of an offensive lineman to begin with. So, I'm not going to rule out Bredesen actually stealing that starting job and walking away with it, and really Shane Lemieux not putting up that much of a fight. But again, who knows? He's a tough guy, Shane Lemieux. He's a partially torn patellar tendon. He's working through it. He's been working all offseason to get better. He could show up a totally different player for all we know.
Absolutely. He has been working really hard. He was a player that during OTAs, minicamp, all that, he was there before 6 a.m. Before anybody else was at the building, Shane Lemieux was there getting ready for practice and starting to get to work and starting to improve as a player earlier than anybody. So I have to commend him for that, and I have to feel really bad for him that he did get injured after working so hard. Like, that's just such a tough break. But as you mentioned, Alex, I am in the boat of wanting to see Bredesen start week one. I do think that he is the better player at this point, a little bit more established and healthier. He is definitely healthier than Shane Lemieux. So when you take that into consideration, no, I don't think that Shane Lemieux has very much chemistry with Andrew Thomas at this point either. Yes, they played for 8 weeks together last year, but the technique has changed and he's injured, so it might affect his chemistry as well. But I think the main thing that Shane Lemieux has on Bredesen at this point is the playbook. He has been here for 2 years now, or at least a year and a half. Whether you're injured or not, you're still out there. You're still learning. You're absorbing the information, the knowledge from the coaching staff. He's been doing that with this coaching staff for a year and a half. Bredesen's been doing it for now two days, 1 day? I think 1 day. So I think we have to give him a little bit more time before we feel confident enough to put him out there. But personally, if you're going by the best 53, the best 11 men on the field, right? At the same time, if you want the best 11 guys, Bredesen, I think, should be out there.
I would concur. I think Bredesen should earn that spot. But let's talk about Matt Skura for a second because he's a player the Giants just signed to the practice squad. He's an experienced center. He spent since 2017 with the Baltimore Ravens, and he joined Miami this year on a 1.75 1-year deal, well, 1.75 million for a 1-year deal, and he didn't even make it through preseason to the regular season. He was expected to be their starting center to open the year. Instead, Miami went out and actually drafted Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame, and they actually think he's going to be their starting center now. I'm rolling with a younger option. Skura is 28.5 years old. He's good friends with Daniel Jones. He's a former Duke guy, so there's already familiarity, already chemistry between Skura and Daniel Jones. That's a very positive sign that he will have some sort of impact. And interestingly, last year, Skura actually, he was benched after week 10. He missed a couple snaps over the head of Lamar Jackson. Not looking so good, but that was one thing that really stood out. And interestingly, Skura actually tore 3 ligaments in his knee, made a way too early return. That's why he was really struggling. He was injured and he was playing through it. And he was actually on pace to be one of the best centers in the league before the injury happened to him. So this is a guy with tons of potential. We're sitting here, maybe Skura pans out, maybe he doesn't, maybe this scheme fits him better. Maybe they trust him with a couple reps to see how he gets going. If the center position is weak or if Nick Gates move over to guard, we'll see how this unfolds. But Skura, interesting guy. He's allowed 5 sacks, 9 hits, 53 hurries, and 67 pressures over 4 seasons with Baltimore. All of them basically playing center except for his rookie season where he played right guard, 732 snaps. But overall, he's been a pretty average pass blocker, a little bit below average run blocker. But before his injury, he actually had a pretty solid season in 2019 where he graded out with a 68.7 overall grade. But keep in mind, like, that's actually pretty good for offensive linemen via PFF. If you take their grading seriously. I'm really just looking at the statistics he gave up, which was the least out of any of his seasons. 1 sack, 1 hit, 5 hurries, and 7 pressures over 717 offensive snaps. Pretty solid numbers to give up. And then considering the year before that, he gave up 22 hurries and 27 pressures. So, he did get a lot better in 2019. Last year, took a step backward because of the ligament injuries to his knee. Anthony, do you think Skura can actually have an impact on this team? He's a practice squatter right now, but it's good to have a player with that much upside on the practice squad you can pull up if need be.
Yeah, I potentially think he could have an impact on this team. Definitely working with the practice squad, working with the scout team, that kind of thing. He can definitely provide some value in that regard, helping teams get better or helping the team get better. Iron sharpens iron kind of idea. But Matt Skura, I think, is actually a really good player. From everything that I've gathered, he was a really good player prior to his injury. Looked like he could become a really good player. And then the injury kind of derailed everything, and he's had a really tough time working back from that, which sucks. And you never want to see that. We've seen it happen with many players in the past. Victor Cruz comes to mind. But Matt Skura, he's kind of been derailed by this injury, but hopefully he's able to bounce back and maybe have a career resurgence with the Giants. This is a team. I know we all have gotten attached to these players. We're kind of attached to Nick Gates. We love him, right? He's an awesome guy. We're attached to Andrew Thomas, attached to Matt Parrott. But sometimes NFL teams don't look at it that way. They look at it as a business, and they do want to get the best five on the field, as I was mentioning with Bredesen. And if at any point this season someone is struggling and they feel like Matt Skura is the best man to put out there, he will go out there. And I think that he will give you at least starting level play, because we've dealt with a lot of below starting level play from our offensive linemen the past few years. But Skura, at the very least, if he's healthy, will play like a decent starter. We know that because he's been that throughout the entirety of his career. He's been a decent starter. So I do like the signing. Low risk, maybe not the highest upside, but the upside's there for it to be better than he was in Baltimore. And again, super low risk. He's on the practice squad, and he is a starting level player. So what more can you ask for? I really like this move. I think it's a really smart move by the Giants. And it's one that you called as well, Alex. You called this a couple days ago on Twitter. So kudos to you, my friend. And yeah, I really like Matt Skura. And I do think there's a chance that we do see him at some point, barring, if any injuries happen, Nick Gates is like your perfect plug and play player. You're just going to put him wherever that injury happens, right? Even if it happens at right tackle, you might even just throw Nick Gates out there because he's so good at everything, right? He can play anywhere. And then you might see Matt Skura hit the field just because of the fact that Nick Gates moves all over the place.
No, I totally agree. Skura could have an impact this year. We'll see how it unfolds with the Giants on the offensive line. If they want to test out different combinations and whatnot, probably will be unfolding during the regular season. Unfortunately, they won't know who their starting five really is until they test some of these guys out. But let's talk about one last topic, the injury report for today. Kenny Golladay, on the field, full pads, running routes. Check. Kadarius Toney, full pads, running around. Check. Saquon Barkley, full pads, taking hits, running around. Check. Kyle Rudolph, full pads. Oh, almost forgot about him. Kyle Rudolph, full pads, running around. Check. Evan Ingram, full pads, walking around. Almost a check. Half a check. So we got most of our weapons, although we have John Ross at the IR. What else do you expect? There's nothing new. John Ross spent most of his time on the injured reserve for every team he's been on. He's only been two teams, but Cincinnati Bengals pretty much spent half his career with Cincinnati on the IR. Why should we expect any different from the Giants? But then looking at these guys that are healthy, Golladay, Toney, Kyle Rudolph, and Saquon, we haven't even seen any four of those guys take the field yet in a game this preseason, let alone last season. We rarely saw Saquon take the field in a game. So this is an offense. We don't know what to say about it. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the playbook is all about. The Giants are keeping things really under wraps. They're not giving any injury information on Golladay, Toney, Saquon, Evan Ingram, none of them. They want Denver to know nothing. And that's exactly what I think is going on, by the way. Why would you tell the entire media what is going on with your players that are injured and working way back? Why would you tell them if you have a game in a week and a half and you don't want them to be able to prepare appropriately? Those are the little details that actually make a difference sometimes in winning and losing. If you make that team have to prepare for multiple different types of players, sometimes they miss something. Sometimes they get overzealous. Sometimes the players don't remember their assignments. Sometimes they don't remember this or that. If things happen, you want to put them at a disadvantage at every single corner. And I think the Giants are doing just that with the injuries, Anthony. But how excited are you to see some of these guys take the field and start taking hits and running full speed again?
Dude, I'm super excited. I think that all of those guys are going to play in week one. I don't know how big of an impact each of those players is going to have. I do think Kenny Golladay is probably really ready to go. He suffered that injury so long ago, it feels like, and they said it was a minor injury anyway, so I think they're just being really cautious with him. But I'm happy to see that they're ramping him up now in time for the regular season, and I think he will have a big impact in week one. Kyle Rudolph, I think, is a guy I've been saying can have a sneaky impact throughout the season. And then, of course, Kadarius Toney. It sounds like he's going to play in week one. They're even talking about using him in different ways and getting him involved as a kick returner. So they sound pretty confident that he's going to be out there, which I'm so excited for. I can't wait to see him suit up finally for the Giants. We never got to saw him during the preseason. That was a little bit disappointing, but if he's there for the regular season, doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm hyped, and I think he will be. It sounds like he's trending towards playing in week one. Same thing with Saquon Barkley. I know we just had that discussion on yesterday's episode where we were like, how much is he going to play? Is he going to play? I still think that they're just kind of being coy about it. I think he plays like 60% of snaps. We'll see. I know they got that short week afterwards, so maybe they'll limit him because of that, but sounds like he's trending in the right direction. He's out there. He's getting hit. He's playing. He's healthy, it seemingly. Seems he's pretty healthy. So definitely excited. These are all the playmakers that we've been talking about all offseason long, how this is going to be the year that the Giants offense maybe takes that step forward as long as Jason Garrett doesn't hold back all of these talented players that we're discussing. So super excited to see that these guys are finally getting healthy. And man, 10 days, man. I cannot wait for week one of the regular season.
10 freaking days, my friends. 10 freaking days. It's been a long offseason. I'm so pumped. I cannot wait to see meaningful football. I cannot wait to see Jabril Peppers pop the head off of somebody in the run game. I cannot wait to see Kenny Galladay's first touchdown catch. I cannot wait to see Daniel Jones not mess up and make a mistake. I am very excited about all of these things that we have yet to see, and this defense, which I think is going to be tremendous, will not be letting up 33 points against the Denver freaking Broncos led by Teddy Bridgewater. No way in this universe are we going to let that happen. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants, as always, talking about Skura, talking about Collin Johnson, talking about some injury reports, talking about this offensive line, hopefully gelling in the coming days. I can't wait for it. I know you guys can't too. Make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. As always, my friends, make sure to keep continuing to watch us. We got so much information, so much good content on the way for you guys, as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next New York Giants video.
TVSO.